I'm Denise Fowler, 35, a single mom from Austin, Texas, who never thought my own sister would shatter my world. At our family dinner table, my 9-year-old daughter said something that stopped time. I found $50,000 in the closet. My sister froze, her fork clattering to the plate. I grabbed the stack of bills, checked the serial numbers, and my heart sank. They matched the money missing from my company's fund. Before I could speak, she lunged across the table, yanked my daughter's hair, and screamed, "You little thief!" The room spun. I pulled my daughter away, my hands trembling, and stared into my sister's panicked eyes. "Then let the police decide who the real thief is," I said, my voice cold as I dialed 911. That moment changed everything. My sister, the one I'd raised like my own, had been my rock until she wasn't. What she did next, and the secret my daughter uncovered, tore our family apart. You won't believe how it unraveled. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you'd die for? Drop your story in the comments. Hit subscribe and tap the bell to see how this betrayal exposed a truth I never saw coming. Looking back, our childhood in Austin started so innocently. I was 7 when my parents brought Erin home from the hospital, her tiny fingers gripping mine like she'd known me forever. We grew up in Round Rock, a quiet suburb where summers meant backyard barbecues and evenings chasing fireflies. I taught her to ride a bike on our cracked driveway, balancing her wobbly frame until she pedaled alone. She'd follow me everywhere, wearing my old clothes and copying my every move. We shared secrets under the covers, giggling about school crushes or planning pretend adventures. Our house was full of music, Dad strumming his guitar on weekends, Mom humming while cooking Tex-Mex dinners. But cracks appeared early. Arguments echoed through the walls, growing louder as money got tight. When I was 18, they called it quits. The divorce hit hard. Mom packed up and moved to Dallas for a job, leaving Dad buried in his mechanic work and a string of girlfriends. Erin was 11, too young to understand why our family splintered. I couldn't just leave for college as planned. Who would get her up for school or make sure she ate? I postponed my dreams, took a job stocking shelves at a local grocery store. Mornings became routines of packing lunches and checking homework. Evenings meant dinner from scratch, helping with math problems, tucking her in with stories to chase away bad dreams. Dad showed up sporadically, guilt in his eyes before vanishing again. "You don't have to do this," he'd say, but his actions said otherwise. I waved it off. She was my sister. Simple as that. My friends headed off to universities while I juggled shifts. The store paid minimum wage, barely covering bills. But seeing Erin thrive kept me going. She excelled in school, made the cheer squad, even won a science fair. I scrimped to buy her uniforms and supplies, skipping my own wants. Nights, I'd collapse exhausted, but her hugs made it worth it. When she started high school, I added a second job waitressing at a diner downtown. Tips helped, but my body ached from long hours on my feet. Erin noticed, slipping me drawings or helping with chores. "You're the best sister ever," she'd say, her voice full of admiration. But deep down, I felt the weight. My 20s slipped away in routines of carpools and parent-teacher meetings. Dad remarried, his new wife uninterested in us. Mom sent occasional checks from Dallas. But it was me holding everything together. Erin promised to pay me back someday. "Just succeed," I told her. Though my savings stayed empty after buying her laptop for college apps. At 25, I met Gregory. He worked in sales, charming with a steady laugh that lightened my days. We dated quietly, fitting around my schedule. Within a year, we married in a small courthouse ceremony. Erin stood as my maid of honor, beaming in a thrift store dress I altered for her. Pregnancy followed soon after. For the first time, life felt balanced, My administrative role at a tech firm paid better. Enough for a tiny apartment in Round Rock. Lisa's birth changed everything. She had my eyes and Gregory's smile. Erin drove in from her part-time job to meet her niece, bringing a knitted blanket she'd made during breaks. "She's perfect," Erin whispered, holding Lisa gently. But the fairy tale faded when Lisa turned 3. Gregory started staying out late. Excuses about client meetings piling up. His phone stayed locked, texts hidden. When I found messages from his coworker, he didn't deny the affair. The divorce dragged on. Custody battles in Austin courts leaving me drained. Gregory moved to Houston with his new girlfriend, sending sporadic child support. Suddenly alone with a toddler. Bills mounted. Erin, fresh from community college, packed up and moved in without hesitation. "I've got you," she said, echoing how I'd supported her. She helped with bedtime routines and grocery runs, her presence a lifeline. But small things nagged, cash disappearing from my purse, bills she offered to pay online turning up late with fees, a credit card charge for clothes I didn't buy, which she blamed on a mix-up. I brushed it aside, too tired to question. This was Erin, the girl I'd raised through chaos. If she borrowed, it had to be innocent. After a year, she found her own place nearby but visited daily. Lisa adored her aunt, who took her to free concerts in Austin parks every weekend. They'd build forts from couch cushions and watch cartoons late. Looking back, I miss the signs. Love blinded me to the patterns emerging. Erin's job hops grew frequent. Stories of bad bosses constant. Her clothes swung from thrift finds to designer pieces she couldn't afford. "Can I borrow a few hundred?" Became routine. Amounts climbing. I'd transfer the money, reminding myself family helped family. After all, I delayed my life for her once. Why stop now while I climbed to IT manager, scraping together that $50,000 in cash for our future? Erin's life spiraled, but I couldn't see it then. Not until it crashed into mine. Life shifted when I met Gregory. He was a sales rep at the tech firm where I worked as an admin assistant, always flashing that easy smile during coffee breaks. We started chatting about weekend plans, and, before long, dates followed. He seemed solid, ambitious, and genuinely interested in my stories about raising Erin. Within a year, we married in a simple ceremony at the county courthouse in Austin. Erin stood by my side, adjusting my veil with tears in her eyes. Pregnancy came soon after. I balanced morning sickness with my job, while Gregory talked about our future house in Round Rock. Lisa arrived on a humid Texas night, her cries filling the delivery room. She had my stubborn chin and Gregory's warm eyes, holding her. Everything clicked into place. My days revolved around feedings and naps. But the joy outweighed the exhaustion. Erin visited often, bringing onesies and offering to babysit so I could catch a breath. "You've got this," she'd say, rocking Lisa to sleep. For a while, stability felt real. My role at the firm grew, handling more projects in Silicon Hills. Gregory's commissions covered our apartment rent, and we saved what we could. But signs crept in when Lisa turned 3. Gregory stayed out later, blaming client dinners. His phone buzzed constantly, screen angled away from me. I found a hotel receipt in his pocket once, but he dismissed it as a business expense. Then the texts appeared, flirty messages from a coworker. Confronted. He admitted the affair without much remorse. "It just happened," he said. Packing his bags, the divorce dragged through Austin courts, lawyers arguing over custody and assets. Gregory moved to Houston with his girlfriend, promising visits that rarely materialized. Child support checks came sporadically, leaving me to cover everything. Suddenly, I was a single mom staring at mounting bills and a toddler who asked for daddy every night. Aaron showed up the day he left, bags in hand. She moved into our spare room without question, helping with baths and story time. We'd share takeout after Lisa slept, her presence easing the ache. She cooked simple meals like chili and cornbread, Texas staples that reminded me of home. On weekends, she'd take Lisa to free events in Austin parks, letting me work overtime. But odd things started happening. $20 vanished from my wallet after grocery shopping. I asked Erin, and she frowned. Must have fallen out. I'll replace it. Then a utility bill she offered to pay online arrived late, with fees attached. Glitch in the system, she explained, eyes avoiding mine. My rarely used credit card showed charges for gas and clothes. Erin claimed it was a surprise for Lisa's birthday. I felt a twinge but pushed it down. This was my sister, who'd cried with me through the divorce nights. If she slipped up, it had to be accidental. After months, Erin found an apartment nearby in Round Rock. She still came over daily, picking Lisa up from daycare or helping with homework. Lisa lit up around her aunt, begging for piggyback rides. They'd bake cookies together, flour dusting the counters. Erin's life seemed unsteady, though. She'd switch jobs every few months, barista one week, retail clerk the next, always blaming bosses or coworkers. Her calls grew erratic, sometimes daily check-ins, other times silence for weeks when she showed up. Her clothes varied wildly, from worn jeans to flashy tops that looked expensive. Found them on sale, she'd say. The borrowing started small. Can I have $50 until payday? I'd transfer it. Knowing her checks were thin, amounts climbed to $100, then $2. She'd repay sometimes, but often forgot. Reminders made her defensive. Counting pennies with family. After all you've been through. Her words stung, pulling at old guilt from our childhood. I'd let it slide, wiring more. Family stuck together. Right. My career pushed forward despite the chaos. I earned a promotion to IT manager, handling projects for startups in Silicon Hills. The raise let me stash cash in the closet, $50,000 over time, split for Lisa's college, emergencies, and a side business dream. Each deposit felt like victory after scraping by. Erin noticed my stability and leaned harder. One evening, she broke down over dinner. Rent's due, and my car is breaking down. I handed over cash, watching her pocket it quickly. Patterns emerged, her highs of new outfits followed by lows of avoidance. I caught her rifling through my desk once, but she laughed it off as looking for a pen. Doubt flickered, but love smothered it. She was my sister. How could I question her as my savings grew? Erin's requests intensified, weaving into our routines like unwelcome threads. Erin's instability grew noticeable over time. One evening, she burst through my door in Round Rock, eyes sparkling with excitement I hadn't seen in months. I met someone, she announced, flopping onto the couch beside Lisa, who was coloring a picture of a Texas bluebonnet. His name was Joshua Kent, a guy she'd run into at a bar downtown where she waitressed part-time. He had that polished look, neat hair, sharp clothes, and talked big about starting a business in Austin's tech scene. Erin gushed about his ambition, how he made her laugh with stories from his travels. He's different, she insisted, scrolling through photos on her phone. I nodded, happy to see her energized. But something about his smile in those pictures felt too rehearsed. Within weeks, Joshua became a fixture. He'd join our casual dinners, charming Lisa with magic tricks using coins from his pocket. Erin leaned on him more, her job hop slowing as she focused on helping his plans. But her visits turned erratic. One day she'd arrive with takeout from a food truck festival. The next, she'd cancel plans last minute. Her wardrobe shifted to pricier items, boots that looked like they cost a paycheck, when I asked. She'd wave it off. Joshua treated me. The borrowing escalated. It started with a quick text, "Need 200 for a car fix, promise to pay back next week." I'd send it, watching my account dip. Next came 300 for medical stuff without insurance. Repayments lagged, excuses piling up like unpaid bills. "Boss shorted my tips," she'd say, voice tight. I'd remind her gently, but she'd snap back. "Why always the third degree? We're family." Her words carried an edge I didn't recognize. Joshua's questions during visits raised flags. He'd casually ask about my IT job at Silicon Hills, probing salary ranges or savings tips. "Must be nice having that stability," he'd comment, eyes lingering on my laptop. Lisa picked up on it first, after one dinner. She tugged my sleeve. "He asks weird stuff about money." I dismissed it as kid imagination, too focused on keeping peace, but Erin spiraled. She'd call late. Voice slurred from a night out. "Joshua's deal is close, just need a bridge loan." Amounts hit 500. Then 7. I'd wire it, stomach knotting each time. My closet stash for Lisa's future felt vulnerable, but I locked it tighter. Erin avoided eye contact during pickups, her laughs forced. One afternoon, she showed up unannounced, makeup smudged from crying. "We got evicted, no warning." I offered the spare room until they sorted it. Joshua moved in too, his bags cluttering the hall. He thanked me profusely, but his gaze swept the house like a praising inventory. That night, Lisa crept into my room. "I don't trust him." Her small face was serious. I hugged her, promising everything was fine, but doubts crept in. Erin and Joshua argued behind closed doors, voices muffled but intense. Lisa overheard snippets. Her curiosity piqued from those mystery shows we watched together on weekends. She started recording on my old phone, hiding it behind books or plants. "They talk about needing big money," she confided one evening, showing me a blurry clip. In it, Joshua pressed Erin. "Your sister's loaded 50 grand easy, we borrow, pay back when my business hits." Erin pushed back. "I can't steal from Denise, she's done too much." His tone shifted to pleading. "Baby, those guys I owe won't wait. 50,000 or they come for me." Lisa's notebook filled with notes. Joshua's real name Eric, something Erin slipped once. I praised her smarts but told her to stop spying. Adults had disagreements. Deep down, unease stirred. The next week, Erin asked for my closet key. "Just storing some stuff." I hesitated, but handed it over to avoid a fight. Joshua's business remained vague: import deals with overseas contacts. He'd flash spreadsheets on his phone, promising quick returns. Erin bought in, her eyes lit with hope. But Lisa kept watching. She hid the phone in the guest room during their talks, capturing Joshua's cold laugh. "Perfect Mark trusts you completely. We'll be gone before she notices." Erin's voice trembled. "We pay her back every cent." He scoffed. "Sure, after Mexico." Lisa scribbled it all, her young mind piecing together the threat. When I left for a 3-day IT conference in Dallas, I hugged her tight. "Be good for Aunt Erin." She nodded, clutching her notebook. If I'd known what brewed in my absence, I'd have canceled the trip. But I drove off, leaving my world in hands I thought safe. Tension built until I left for Dallas. The IT conference kept me busy with sessions on cybersecurity, my mind half on work, half on home. Calls to Lisa went fine. She chattered about school projects and how Joshua showed her a card game. Erin sounded rushed but assured me everything ran smooth. "Don't worry, sis," she said during our last check-in. I boarded the flight back to Austin, eager to hug my daughter and unpack, pulling into our Round Rock driveway. The house looked normal, lights on in the kitchen. Erin's car parked beside Joshua's truck. I stepped inside to the smell of spaghetti sauce simmering. Lisa rushed over, wrapping her arms around my waist. "Missed you, Mom." Erin stirred the pot, smiling tightly. Joshua leaned against the counter, nodding hello. We settled into dinner around the wooden table, plates clinking as I asked about their days. Lisa bounced in her seat, eager to share, midway through. She blurted it out casually between bites. "I found $50,000 in the closet." The room went silent. Erin's fork froze midair, sauce dripping onto her plate. Joshua's eyes darted to her. I set down my glass, confusion hitting first. "What do you mean?" "Honey?" Lisa shrugged, oblivious to the tension. "In the guest room closet, behind some boxes, big stack of bills." My pulse quickened. That was my stash, the $50,000 I'd hidden for Lisa's college, emergencies, and my business idea. How had she found it? Erin recovered fast, laughing it off. "Probably playing pretend again. Right, kiddo?" But her voice cracked. I pushed my chair back. "Show me." We moved to the guest room, Lisa leading the way. She pointed to the closet shelf. I reached behind the boxes and pulled out the bundle, crisp hundreds bound with rubber bands. Relief mixed with unease. Why was it here instead of my bedroom safe? Erin's face paled as I flipped through the stack. Something felt off. The bills looked familiar. As IT manager handling project funds at Silicon Hills, I dealt with cash reimbursements tracked for audits. I grabbed my work laptop from the bag, logging into the company database. Serial numbers on company cash got recorded to prevent fraud, standard procedure under IRS rules for business expenses. I scanned a few bills under my phone light, entering the numbers. Matches popped up, these exact serials tied to a recent fund withdrawal I'd approved for a vendor. But the money had vanished from the safe last week. The police report I'd filed flashed in my mind. "These match the stolen company funds," I whispered, stomach dropping. Erin lunged forward, grabbing the stack. "That's not possible." Joshua stepped in, his charm gone. "Let's calm down." But Lisa piped up. "I saw Aunt Erin put it there yesterday." Chaos erupted. Erin spun toward Lisa, face twisted in panic. She grabbed my daughter's arm, yanking her hair hard. "You little thief, snooping where you shouldn't." Lisa cried out in pain, tears streaming. I shoved Erin back, pulling Lisa behind me. "Get your hands off her." Joshua tried to intervene, but I pointed at the door. "Both of you, out now." Erin's eyes wild. She screamed again. "She's lying. That money's mine." I dialed 911, voice steady despite shaking hands. "Police, please. There's been a theft and an assault on my child." The operator asked questions while Erin paced, muttering denials. Joshua slipped toward the back door, but I blocked him. "Stay put. This ends tonight." Sirens wailed in the distance, lights flashing through the windows. Neighbors like Mrs. Bonney peeked from across the street. Officers arrived from Austin PD, badges gleaming under porch lights. I explained the cash, the serial matches, the attack. One cop noted Lisa's red scalp, taking photos. Erin protested, claiming innocence. "It's a misunderstanding." Joshua stayed silent, sweat beading on his forehead. The lead officer, a woman with a firm tone, cuffed them both for questioning. "We'll sort this at the station." As they led Erin away, she shot me a desperate look. "Denise, please." I held Lisa close, ignoring her. The house fell quiet after they left, officers sealing the cash as evidence. Lisa sobbed into my shirt. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." I knelt, wiping her tears. "You did the right thing, honey." But questions swirled. How had my company funds ended up in Erin's hands? The tracking explained the match serial numbers logged in our system for every disbursement, a safeguard against internal theft. As manager, I'd overseen that protocol myself. This wasn't random. It pointed to something deeper, something planned. Investigation unfolded quickly after that. Officers from Austin PD took statements in my living room, their radios crackling with updates. Karen Mills, the lead detective, arrived within the hour, a no-nonsense woman with sharp questions and a notebook that never stopped filling. She examined the cash bundle, scanning serial numbers on her tablet. "These tie to a reported theft from your company's fund," she confirmed. I nodded. Explaining my role at Silicon Hills, the tracking system logged every bill for compliance, a routine I'd implemented to catch discrepancies. Aaron sat cuffed on the couch, denying everything. Joshua remained silent, his earlier charm replaced by a blank stare. They hauled both to the station for processing. I held Lisa close as the cruiser pulled away, her small body still shaking from the grab. Mrs. Bonney from next door knocked soon after, offering to watch Lisa while I followed to the precinct. "Saw the lights?" she said. "Anything I can do." Her kindness steadied me. At the station, chaos reigned. Karen pulled me into an interview room, laying out initial findings. The serial matches confirmed the cash as stolen company property, $50,000, meant for a vendor payment that vanished last week. "Your sister had access?" she asked. I admitted Aaron knew my work schedule and had visited the office once, but how she'd pulled it off puzzled me. My phone buzzed. Gregory Hunt, my ex-husband, calling from Houston. Word traveled fast through mutual friends. "I'm driving up now," he said. "Lisa okay?" His voice carried concern I hadn't heard in years. By morning, Gregory arrived, disheveled from the overnight drive. We met at the precinct where Karen briefed us. As a sales consultant familiar with financial audits, he offered to cross-check the serial logs against company records. "I still have contacts at Silicon Hills," he explained. We huddled over laptops in a conference room, his fingers flying across keys. The data matched bills withdrawn under my authorization but diverted somehow. Gregory spotted anomalies in access logs. "Someone used your credentials remotely." Aaron's laptop, seized during the arrest, held the key. Forensics revealed logins from my home IP during my Dallas trip. Confrontation came next. Karen arranged separate interviews. First Joshua. She emerged shaking her head. Claims he knew nothing. But his phone records told another story, calls to known fraud rings. A deeper dive exposed his real identity, Eric Moss, wanted in 3 states for similar schemes. He'd targeted women like Aaron, using them to infiltrate family finances. "Confidence man through and through," Karen said. Aaron's turn arrived. Gregory waited outside while I joined Karen in the observation room. Aaron looked wrecked, hair disheveled, eyes red from crying. "I didn't plan this," she started. Karen pressed. "Then explain the logins." Aaron broke down. Joshua Eric had pushed her. He owed bad people, said we'd borrow and repay. But her story cracked under questions. She admitted resentment built over years. "You always had it together, job, house, Lisa. I had nothing." Her words landed heavy. I'd sacrificed for her, yet she saw me as the lucky one. The Atlanta scam surfaced then, 2 years back, during a rough patch. Aaron had gone to Atlanta for a job opportunity. She met a married executive at a conference, started an arrangement for cash. He paid to keep quiet, she confessed. $10,000 at first, more later. Eric had discovered it, threatening exposure unless she helped steal the fund. "He said you'd disown me if you knew." Karen noted it all. "That makes you an accomplice." Aaron nodded, tears flowing. "I know." Charges piled up: grand theft, fraud, assault on Lisa. Joyce Lee, the district attorney, met us later. "First offender for your sister, but the assault complicates it." She offered a plea: testify against Eric for reduced time, 2 years minimum security plus probation. Gregory urged me to consider. For Lisa's sake, maybe. But anger burned. Erin had chosen this path, resentment fueling her actions. I declined leniency. Let the court decide. Trials followed swiftly. Eric got 10 years federal for multi-state fraud, his past catching up. Erin drew 2 years in a Texas facility, plus restitution orders garnishing future wages. Her life unraveled, job lost, apartment evicted, friends distant. As she was led away in cuffs, she mouthed, "Sorry." I turned. Focus on Lisa, waiting outside. Consequences hit hard in the months that followed. Erin's life crumbled fast. The Austin court sentenced her to 2 years in a minimum security facility outside Houston, with 3 years of probation and restitution orders to follow. Her waitressing job vanished. Her landlord evicted her. And the few friends she had stopped calling. Neighbors like Mrs. Bonnie and Mr. Leroy, once quick with small talk, crossed the street to avoid her name. Word spread in Round Rock's tight-knit community. Erin Walsh, the sister who stole and attacked her niece, became a cautionary tale. She moved to a halfway house after release, scraping by on odd jobs, her savings gone, her reputation in tatters. Eric Moss faced worse. Federal charges for fraud across 3 states landed him 10 years in a high-security prison. His charm couldn't save him. Court records painted a trail of scams targeting families like ours. I blocked all contact with Erin, filing a no-contact order through the court to keep her away from Lisa. Her final apology, mouthed in cuffs, lingered in my mind. But trust was ashes now. I changed my number, locked my accounts, and moved forward. Recovery wasn't easy. The stolen $50,000 hit hard. Lisa's college fund took the worst blow. I took on freelance coding gigs after work, burning midnight hours to rebuild. My company stood by me, impressed with my handling of the theft case. A promotion to senior IT manager came soon after, boosting my pay enough to cover bills and start saving again. The raise felt like a lifeline, proof I could claw back stability. Lisa struggled with the fallout. Nightmares woke her some nights, asking why her aunt hurt her. I enrolled her with Miss Wanda, the school counselor, who helped her process the betrayal. She's strong, Wanda told me during a parent meeting. Kids bounce back when they feel safe. I made sure Lisa did extra hugs, movie nights with popcorn, trips to Austin's music festivals to see her smile. She joined a coding club at school, channeling her sharp mind into building apps. Her latest project, a game about solving puzzles, won a local contest. "It's like being a detective," she said, grinning. Her resilience lifted me. I leaned on small routines to heal. Mornings meant coffee on the porch, watching neighbors wave as they walked dogs. Evenings were for sketching business plans, a tech consulting side hustle I'd dreamed of for years. Each step forward distanced me from Erin's shadow. Gregory stayed in touch, calling weekly to check on Lisa. His help during the investigation softened old wounds. But I kept boundaries firm, no rekindling, just co-parenting. He sent a birthday gift for Lisa, a tablet for her coding, which she loved. The community stepped up too. Mrs. Bonnie dropped off casseroles, and Mr. Leroy offered to fix my car's flat tire for free. Their support reminded me I wasn't alone, even without family. Months later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Erin tried writing from the halfway house, asking for a chance to explain. I didn't respond. The court order held firm. Her restitution payments started trickling in small amounts from her wages, barely denting the debt. I deposited them without comment, focusing on my own path. Eric's name surfaced in news reports. His sentence extended for additional charges. I didn't follow the details. His chapter was closed. My life took shape in new ways. The promotion let me afford a coding boot camp for myself, sharpening skills that landed a contract with a local startup. The extra income rebuilt Lisa's college fund faster than expected. I hung her contest certificate on the fridge, a reminder of her strength. One evening, sitting with Lisa at a food truck festival, I realized how far we'd come. She laughed, chasing fireflies like I once did with Aaron. The memory stung, but I let it pass. Trusting family came with limits. I learned. Blind loyalty had cost me my savings, my peace, Lisa's safety. But justice stepped in where trust failed. The police, the courts, even my daughter's sharp instincts showed me protection starts with clear boundaries. I'd never let anyone cross them again. That lesson, hard won, reshaped how I saw family. It wasn't about blood, but about actions, about who showed up without strings. Lisa taught me that, her courage cutting through my blindness. If I'd listened sooner, maybe I'd have seen Aaron's drift. But now, I knew better. Trust must be earned, and justice guards what matters most.
"We always knew you'd figure it out," my mother said, stirring her coffee in my expensive kitchen like she hadn't kicked me out 14 years ago, with nothing but a backpack and crushed dreams. "Your stepfather and I were just discussing how our tough love approach clearly paid off." My name is Samantha, and at 32, I was watching my past casually stroll back into my life through my front door, uninvited and unannounced. Patricia and Gerald, my mother and stepfather, had tracked me down through business articles about my company's success. "When we saw your name in that magazine," Gerald added, his eyes scanning my living room with calculated interest, "we knew our parenting methods had worked. Sometimes children need a push to reach their potential." A push. That's what they called throwing me out at 18 because I didn't get into Harvard. Apparently a full scholarship to Northwestern hadn't been good enough for their standards. "You'll never amount to anything if you settle for second best," they'd said while packing my things. "The house looks expensive," my mother observed, her tone suggesting I owed this success to her somehow. "Though the neighborhood isn't quite what I'd have chosen. You always did make interesting choices." I kept my face neutral as I remembered the years after they'd kicked me out. The cramped studio apartment I'd shared with 3 other girls while working 2 jobs. The community college classes I'd taken at night while building my business during the day. The times I'd had to choose between dinner and bus fare. "We've been thinking," Gerald said, setting down his untouched coffee. "Now that you've proven yourself capable, it's time to discuss repayment." Repayment? I kept my voice steady, though something cold settled in my stomach. "For raising you, of course," my mother jumped in. "The private schools, the music lessons, the opportunities we provided. We invested a lot in your future, and now that you're successful, it's time to show your appreciation." I thought about those opportunities, the constant pressure, the criticism, the way nothing was ever good enough. How every achievement came with a reminder that I could have done better, been better, achieved more. "We've calculated it all," Gerald continued, pulling out a folder. 18 years of expenses, adjusted for inflation. We think a payment plan would be reasonable, given your obvious financial success. They sat there in my carefully built sanctuary, discussing how I owed them for years of emotional abuse, as if they were reviewing a business contract. As if they hadn't thrown away their daughter over a college acceptance letter. I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Let them mistake my quiet for acquiescence. Let them think they still had power over me. "We kept all the receipts," my mother continued, spreading papers across my kitchen island. "Private school tuition, ballet lessons, tennis camp, everything that helped shape you into a success." I glanced at the yellowed papers, remembering the reality behind each one. The private school where I'd never been good enough, always compared to other students. The ballet lessons that came with weekly weigh-ins and criticism about my sturdy build. The tennis camp where Gerald had screamed at me for missing serves until I cried. "Tutoring fees alone were astronomical," Gerald added, pointing to a column of numbers. "Not that they helped you get into Harvard, but clearly the education stuck somehow." My mother nodded. though if you'd tried harder with your application. I was valedictorian, I said quietly. The first words I'd spoken since they'd started their presentation. Yes, but of a public high school, my mother dismissed. After we'd invested so much in private education. Really, Samantha, that decision to transfer was the beginning of your rebellion. The rebellion she referred to had been my choice to switch schools after my private school counselor reported signs of anxiety and depression. They'd pulled me out immediately. Couldn't risk their perfect daughter tarnishing their reputation with mental health issues. We're asking for a reasonable return on investment, Gerald continued. Say, 20% of your company's annual profits, given current market valuations. Did you keep receipts for the month after you kicked me out? I interrupted, my voice still calm. They exchanged glances. I don't see how that's relevant, my mother started. I do, because I kept receipts too. I stood up and walked to my home office, returning with my own folder. Here's one for the motel room I slept in that first week. The clinic visit when I got strep throat but couldn't afford antibiotics. The payday loan I had to take out to make rent that winter. Now, Samantha. I have more. The credit card bills from living on ramen while taking night classes. The pay stubs from working retail and waitressing to afford community college. The bank statements showing every penny I saved to start my business. My mother's face tightened. That's all very dramatic, but... No. What's dramatic is throwing out your 18-year-old daughter because she got a full ride to Northwestern instead of Harvard. What's dramatic is showing up 14 years later, expecting a return on investment for basic parental obligations. Northwestern, my mother scoffed, like the name itself was distasteful. All that potential, and you settled for... I didn't settle for anything, I cut her off. I earned a full academic scholarship. Do you know what I settled for? Sleeping on a friend's couch while working 2 jobs, eating 1 meal a day to afford textbooks. Building something from nothing because my own parents decided I wasn't worth supporting. Gerald shifted uncomfortably. Now see here. No, you see here. I opened my folder wider. I have everything documented. The date you changed the locks. The text message telling me not to come back until I'd learned my lesson about mediocrity. The email where you told my grandparents not to help me because I needed to face the consequences of my choices. My mother's face had lost some of its confidence. We did what was necessary. Necessary? I pulled out more papers. Here's my college transcript. Dean's list every semester while working full-time. Here's my business license, dated 6 years ago. The lease on my first office, paid for entirely by myself. Bank statements showing every penny I earned, saved, and invested. That's all very impressive, Gerald tried to regain control, which proves our methods. Proved nothing except your failure as parents. My voice remained steady, even as I watched them flinch. I succeeded despite you, not because of you. Every achievement you're trying to take credit for came after you threw me away. Never. My mother's hands trembled slightly as she gathered her receipts. You're being very ungrateful. Ungrateful. I actually laughed. For what? The therapy bills I'm still paying? The panic attacks during college admission season? The years it took to believe I was worth something beyond an acceptance letter? The confidence they'd walked in with was crumbling. They'd expected to find the same scared 18-year-old they'd thrown away. Instead, they'd found a woman who'd built herself from the ground up, who had receipts of her own. If anyone owes anything, I continued, it's you. 14 years of absent parenting, by your own calculations. Shall we discuss back pay for emotional damages? We did what any good parents would do, my mother protested, but her voice had lost its earlier authority. You needed motivation. I needed parents. I pulled out one final document, the one I'd been saving. Remember this? The letter you wrote to Northwestern, trying to get them to rescind my scholarship? They both went pale. Apparently, they hadn't expected that particular receipt to surface. We were only thinking of your future, Gerald attempted, but his eyes stayed fixed on the letter. Harvard would have... Would have what? Given me the strength I found on my own? The resilience I built working 3 jobs? The business sense I developed starting from nothing? I smiled, and for the first time, they looked truly unsettled. Harvard couldn't have taught me what you did, that the only person I can count on is myself. My mother gathered her papers with shaking hands. Clearly you've become bitter. No, I've become successful. There's a difference. I stood up, my full height somehow making them seem smaller. And unlike you, I can prove exactly how I got here. Every step documented, every penny earned, every achievement accomplished without a cent of your money or a moment of your support. Now see here, Gerald tried one last time. We came to have a reasonable discussion about cashing in on success you tried to prevent? About claiming credit for achievements you actively sabotaged? I walked to my front door and opened it. I think we're done discussing anything. You can't just dismiss us, my mother's voice rose. We're your parents. No, you're people who shared a house with me for 18 years, people who confused cruelty with motivation, people who threw away their daughter and now want to profit from her success. This isn't over, Gerald threatened weakly. Actually, it was over 14 years ago when you changed the locks and told me not to come back. The only difference is, now I'm the one closing the door. They stood on my porch, looking lost without their carefully prepared receipts and calculations. They'd walked in expecting to find leverage, to claim ownership of my success. Instead, they'd found something they'd never anticipated, a woman who'd kept better records than they had. The fallout came quickly. My mother launched a social media campaign, painting herself as the heartbroken parent of an ungrateful child. She posted old photos of us, carefully curated to show happy moments that never existed, each caption dripping with manufactured grief. All we ever did was push her to excel, she wrote. Now she refuses to acknowledge our role in her success. The comments were illuminating. Former teachers, old neighbors, even distant relatives started sharing their own memories of Patricia and Gerald's parenting. Remember when you screamed at her during the school play because she had a supporting role instead of the lead? I was there when you made her practice tennis with a fever because champions don't take sick days. Didn't you tell my daughter she was lucky to be mediocre because at least no one expected anything from her? Each comment revealed another crack in their carefully constructed narrative. The perfect parents who'd sacrificed everything for their child suddenly had witnesses to their abuse. Gerald tried damage control, reaching out to mutual acquaintances with their version of events. But he made a crucial mistake. He put it in writing. We invested everything in that girl, he wrote in an email that quickly circulated. Private schools, lessons, camps. How were we supposed to know she'd end up successful without Harvard? We had to cut our losses. Cut their losses, like I'd been a bad investment rather than their child. My Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, finally broke her years of silence. She sent me copies of emails from 14 years ago, ones where my mother had bragged about teaching me a lesson. Samantha needs to understand that second best isn't good enough, my mother had written. Northwestern is practically a community college compared to Harvard. Better she learns now that failure has consequences. I added these to my growing file. Not for revenge, I had nothing to prove to them anymore, but as a reminder of how far I'd come, of what I'd overcome. My company continued to thrive. A profile in a business magazine mentioned my unconventional path to success, highlighting how I'd built everything from scratch. The interviewer asked about my parents. Some people teach you how to succeed, I replied carefully. Others teach you how to survive. I'm grateful for the lesson I actually needed. The article went viral, not because of my business success, but because of what it revealed about resilience, about redefining family, about rising from rejection. A week after the article was published, my mother and Gerald tried one last approach. They showed up at my office, where my receptionist, who'd been warned about them, immediately called security. Just 5 minutes, my mother pleaded as security arrived. We've been doing some thinking. Let me guess, I said, stepping out of my office. You've realized your mistakes? You're sorry? You want to make amends? Gerald nodded eagerly. We were too harsh. We see that now. But everything we did was to push you toward greatness. No, I corrected them. Everything you did was to satisfy your own egos. Harvard wasn't about my future. It was about your bragging rights. That's not fair, my mother protested. We sacrificed everything. You sacrificed nothing. You threw away your daughter because she didn't fit your narrative of perfection. And now that she's successful despite you, you want to rewrite history. My employees had stopped pretending to work, watching the scene unfold. Many of them knew my story. I'd made a point of creating a company culture that valued growth over perfection, support over criticism. We're still your parents, my mother tried again. No, you're not. Parents don't abandon their children for getting into the wrong Ivy League school. Parents don't try to sabotage their children's scholarships. Parents don't show up years later with receipts demanding repayment for raising their kids. Security waited patiently by the elevator. My mother's eyes filled with tears, the same performance she'd perfected years ago. You've become so cold, she accused. No, I've become successful. You just don't like that I did it without you, that I proved your entire philosophy wrong, that I built something meaningful without Harvard, without your connections, without your approval. Gerald stepped forward. If you'd just listen. I did listen. For 18 years, I listened to every criticism, every demand, every declaration of my inadequacy. Now it's your turn to listen. Get out of my office. Get out of my life. And take your receipts with you. As security escorted them out, I heard my mother's last attempt. You'll regret this when you have children of your own. I watched them disappear into the elevator, thinking about the kind of parent I would be. How I'd celebrate effort over perfection, resilience over prestige, growth over grades. 6 months after the office confrontation, my company launched a scholarship program for students who'd overcome significant obstacles to pursue their education. The first recipient was a girl who'd been kicked out by her parents for choosing a state university over their preferred private college. The irony wasn't lost on anyone when my mother tried to take credit for inspiring the initiative. She'd posted a long social media message about how her tough love had taught me the importance of helping others. My Aunt Susan sent me screenshots of the post, along with years of saved emails documenting what had really happened. Your mother's trying to rewrite history again, she wrote, but some of us remember the truth. The truth. Like how my mother and Gerald had called every relative, warning them not to help me after they'd thrown me out, how they'd threatened to cut contact with anyone who offered me support, how they'd spread rumors about my rebellion, to explain why their perfect daughter had suddenly disappeared. But Susan had quietly defied them, sending me care packages addressed to my friend's apartment, slipping money into my bank account when she could. She'd kept every email, every text, every piece of evidence of their cruelty. They're telling people the scholarship program proves they were right, Susan told me over lunch, that their methods taught you the value of education. I smiled, thinking of the acceptance letter I'd just signed for our newest scholarship recipient. They taught me something, all right, just not what they intended. My company continued to grow. We expanded into new markets, hired more employees, moved into larger offices. Each success felt like a vindication, not of their methods, but of my resilience. The business magazine that had originally featured my story did a follow-up piece about the scholarship program. The interviewer asked about my parents' claims of inspiration. Some lessons come from positive examples, I replied. Others come from learning what not to do. This scholarship exists because I remember what it feels like to have your education held hostage by people who should support you unconditionally. The article went viral again. Other successful people started sharing similar stories of parents who'd weaponized education, of support withdrawn over college choices, of success achieved despite, not because of, family pressure. My mother tried calling after the article was published. We're proud of what you've become, she said in her voicemail. We always knew you had it in you. I saved the message alongside my other documentation, not because I needed it anymore, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. of the difference between pride and ownership, between support and control. The scholarship program expanded to include mentorship opportunities. I made sure every recipient knew they had value beyond their college acceptance letters, worth beyond their academic achievements. We celebrated their efforts, their resilience, their determination to succeed on their own terms. In a way, my mother and Gerald had taught me something valuable, just not the lesson they'd intended. They'd taught me how to build something from nothing, how to find strength in rejection, how to turn pain into purpose. During a scholarship awards ceremony, one of the recipients asked me what inspired me to start the program. As I looked out at the young faces in the audience, each with their own story of family pressure and conditional love, I finally found the words I'd been searching for. Success isn't just about where you end up, I told them. It's about how you get there, who you become along the way. Sometimes the hardest lessons teach us the most important things, not because of what others wanted us to learn, but because of what we discovered about ourselves. My mother and Gerald watched the ceremony live stream. I knew because they immediately posted about it, trying once again to claim credit for my charitable nature. This time, though, their attempts at reputation management backfired spectacularly. One of my former classmates commented, "Weren't you the ones who told everyone not to help Samantha when she was homeless after you kicked her out? Strange way to teach charity." The scholarship recipients' stories began circulating online, each one resonating with others who'd faced similar pressure. Parents started reaching out, not to defend my mother and Gerald, but to thank me for helping them recognize toxic patterns in their own behavior. "I was pushing my daughter toward medical school because that's what I wanted," one father wrote. "After reading about your scholarship program, I finally asked what she wanted. She's studying art now, and I've never seen her happier." My Aunt Susan attended every scholarship ceremony, beaming with genuine pride. "This is real legacy," she told me after one event. "Not the kind your mother tried to force, but something meaningful you built yourself." The company expanded the program to include emergency housing assistance for students whose families had withdrawn support over educational choices. My mother, predictably, tried to spin this as evidence of her positive influence. "We taught her the importance of having a safety net," she posted, conveniently forgetting how they deliberately destroyed mine. The post prompted my old high school counselor to break her silence. She shared the report she'd filed 14 years ago, documenting her concerns about the psychological abuse she'd witnessed, the one that had been buried after my parents threatened legal action against the school. "Remember when you told me not to ruin their reputation?" she wrote. "Look who's doing that all by themselves now." Gerald made one final attempt at reconciliation, or rather, at regaining control. He showed up at a business conference where I was speaking, cornering me after my presentation. "We've been thinking," he started, using the same tone he'd used when criticizing my college choices. "Your mother and I could serve as advisors for your scholarship program, help screen candidates, ensure they're worthy of the investment." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the intimidating figure from my childhood, but a small man desperate to claim credit for something he'd tried to prevent. "The point of the program," I replied calmly, "is that everyone is worthy of support. That's precisely what you never understood." The scholarship program's 5th anniversary celebration brought unexpected closure. Local media covered the event, interviewing past recipients who had gone on to build successful careers or start their own businesses. Each one shared how the program had changed their lives, not just through financial support, but by showing them their worth wasn't tied to their parents' expectations. My mother and Gerald weren't present, but their absence had become irrelevant. The legacy they'd tried to force through Harvard acceptance letters had been replaced by something more meaningful, a community of young people who'd learned to define success on their own terms. During the celebration, a young woman approached me, one of our first scholarship recipients. She'd recently graduated and started her own small business. "My parents reached out last week," she told me. "They said they're proud of me, that they understand now why I chose my own path. Your story helped them see what they almost lost." I thought about my own parents, still posting occasionally about their role in my success, still trying to rewrite a history that fewer and fewer people believed. Their influence had faded not through confrontation, but through the simple power of truth. Success stories that proved their methodology wrong. Young lives flourishing without Ivy League pressure. The company had created a new tradition. Each scholarship recipient received a journal with one simple inscription: "Your worth isn't measured by others' expectations." It was the message I'd needed at 18, now passed forward to others who needed to hear it. My final interaction with my mother and Gerald came through a certified letter. They'd decided to update their will, they wrote, and wanted to leave me their estate, with conditions. I would need to acknowledge their vital role in my success, rename the scholarship program to include their names, and allow them positions on the foundation's board. I sent back a simple response: "No thank you. I succeeded without your inheritance once. I'll continue to do so." The scholarship program had grown beyond anything I'd imagined, supporting hundreds of students who'd chosen their own paths despite family pressure. Each success story was a quiet rebuttal to the idea that love should be conditional, that support should depend on college acceptance letters. During one of our mentorship sessions, a student asked if I ever regretted not getting into Harvard. I looked around at what I'd built, not just a successful company, but a foundation that helped others rise from similar rejection. "Harvard might have given me a degree," I replied, "but this journey gave me something more valuable. Proof that we're all worthy of support, regardless of which path we choose." My mother's last social media post about me remained unanswered. A mother's love is shown through high expectations. Below it, hundreds of comments from scholarship recipients shared a different message. True love supports without demands, believes without conditions, and celebrates without keeping receipts.